Welcome to another edition of sWordSmiths Bible Book Club. We're picking up where we left off in chapter 10 of Genesis. What we're doing is we're working our way through the Bible one chapter at a time, and we're uncovering what has been ignored, addressing what has been dismissed, misconstrued, misunderstood, and we're just appreciating what's there in the book, celebrating what's there in the book, verse by verse. All right, so we're in chapter 10 of Genesis. We find ourselves in the quote-unquote table of nations, which is mostly a speed bump in the Bible, along with the senses of the book of Numbers when we get there. And also a speed bump in the Bible is the genealogy in the book of Chronicles. Okay, so I've tried to find a way to make this interesting. I think I've found a way to do that. If you are interested in geography and races of people, and understand this chapter is a very important chapter because it sets the stage for the rest of the Bible. It helps, it's like a dictionary for the rest of the book that you can always relate back to when you get lost in the book, when it's dealing with interactions between Israel and another race, or the introduction of another race, tribe of people in the history that Israelites are telling. Because this is basically what the Bible is. The Bible is the Israelites telling of their own history and their interactions with other peoples around them. That's all the Bible really is. And I'm telling you, some people, there's certain people that like to make it more than that, but that's basically what it is. So without further ado, let's get into this chapter. I'm going to go ahead and minimize my screen and share it to let you in on the study so that you can see it for yourself. I'm going to have to do this. I'm going to have to go to Chrome, and then I'm going to have to change my tab. As you can see, I got a gang of tabs open. All right, so here it is. Genesis chapter 10. I'm going to move this up the top of the screen. I'm sure you couldn't see that, what I just did, but I had to move something up to the top of the screen so I can completely see the study in front of us. All right, so Genesis chapter 10, the settlements of the sons of Noah. I renamed this chapter, the settlements of the sons of Noah, because I am applying the Wandelian Bible study method to this chapter to accomplish all the things I said in the beginning of the video about the purpose of this video. So we're going to focus on the topic from verse 1 until we get to another topic, which I'll name then. But this topic is book 6 of the generations of the sons of Noah. All right. Now, the reason why it's called book 6 is because if you watch the other Bible Book Club videos, I speak of how there are several different books that make up Genesis, and they identify themselves by title. And you can find out what those titles are by watching those previous videos. I'm not going to cover it now. But this is book 6. This is the sixth, sixth book we've uncovered in our studies thus far. Let's dig into it. This is the generations of the sons of Noah. By the way, let me say this real quick. I found out a better way to complement my studies of each chapter of the Bible by utilizing the Apocrypha, which gives much more detail into every one of these chapters. So I'm going to be doing a part 2 of this video covering the complements to this chapter given to us by the book of Joshua and the book of Jubilees. And trust me, it takes this chapter to a whole new dimension with the information that it mentions, as far as the people that are mentioned in this chapter. And it's an injustice, I think, that those books were not included in the canon of the Bible as they once were. Once were in one country and once were altogether in another country. I think we're being robbed of information that will better round out our knowledge of the scriptures. Okay, without further ado. Now, what I want to tell you is, in this video, normally I focus on the verse column, which is usually the Septuagint rendering of the chapter, right? But today I'm going to twist it around a bit. I'm going to focus on the mechanical translation of the Bible, which was done by Jeff Brenner, who is a Hebrew scholar that I love. I love Jeff Brenner's work. He did a translation called the mechanical translation that translated the Hebrew word for word. So it's a much more literal translation, and because it's a literal translation from the Hebrew language into English, it violates the laws of English syntax. And it may sound like broken English to you, but I love that kind of translation. I love when liberties are not taken to help fudge the translation to make sense in English, because I think you cheapen the true meaning and the truth of the translation. Spoken enough, let's get right to it. And these birthings, I'm in chapter 10, verse 1. And these birthings, sons, Noah, rest, Shem, character, Hem, hot, and Japhet, wonder. And they will bring forth to them sons after the flood. All right. Let me explain what you're hearing, so that I can help make sense of what does not make sense. In this mechanical translation, it does some of the work for us, which is why I'm choosing it. It actually translates the names into their English equivalent. Apparently, these names are Hebraic. At least in the Bible, they are. The Hebrews done the work of taking names that may not have been Hebraic and translating them into a Hebraic form. And what the translator of the Mechanical Bible has done for us is taken those names and translate them into our language, which is English. And so that's why you were hearing me saying a language and a word right after it. And that's what the word in parentheses, and not parentheses, but brackets is. That's what it is. The translation of that name. So if you're reading along with me, that's what you're seeing. Okay? Let's go to the notes. Well, let's go to the teaching so far. Genesis chapter 9. This coincides with Genesis chapter 9, 24. And Noah awoke from his wine and knew what his younger son had done to him. Now, The Bible has confused this issue a bit to where you may not know who the oldest son of Noah is. You may not know who the youngest son of Noah is. Right offhand, because the Bible keeps rearranging the order of the name of the sons, okay? And not concerned with this chapter, doesn't seem to be concerned with the birth order that you'll see in Genesis chapter 5:32, Genesis 6:10, Genesis 7:13, Genesis 9:18. Feel free to look those verses up and come back to the video to complement your knowledge. And in those verses I just mentioned, the birth order would be Shem, Ham, and Japheth, which will leave you with the idea that, hey, Shem was the oldest son, and Japheth must have been the youngest. Okay? But if you know anything about Hebrew literature, you will understand why that's being done, especially in the Hebrew Bible. The Hebrew people come from the Shemitic line. So they're mentioning Shem first, not because he's the oldest, but because he is he's the one that's more relative. He's the one that, okay? I know that doesn't make sense, but let me continue. It has been presumed, or that is the presumed order, right? Until now, where the order is out of whack a bit in this chapter. The reason is out of order. The reason it's out of order here is because of genealogical targeting. Genealogical targeting for the preceding chapter, right? The preceding chapter, a technique in storytelling, and we find that it is relevant. The birthing order is relevant here because in the next verse, in this chapter, Shem is mentioned last. In the next verse, it picks up from Shem's line and continues to speak as it relates to the Hebrew people. Okay? Also, too, let me mention this now. I'm going to complement the notes here with the notes of the Net Bible, which should enlighten quite a bit what we're about to uncover here. To help us understand the nations that are being presented and some background knowledge that may help us piece things together and find out where it fits in the whole spectrum of the Bible. Verse 2. Sons, Japhet, wonder, Gomer, complete, and Magog, or Magog, roof, and Midday, measure, and Yawan, wine, and Tuval, flow, and Meshech, draw out, and Tiras, breaking. Now the word that's the sun, Meshech, is equivalent to the name Moses or Moshe. And Meshech, the Septuagint has different. The Septuagint have a different rendering of spelling, or different phonetical pronunciation of the word. So there in the Septuagint is Moshek. I'm sorry. Moshok. Shares the same meaning with Moshe. Okay? To drawn out. That's exactly what not Noah, but that's exactly what Moses' name means. Drawn out. Verse 3. And sons, Gomer, complete, Ashkenaz, Ding, 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 ding. That should sound familiar to you. Ashkenaz, fire spread, and Rifat, health, and Tagoma, gnaw a bone. Those are the meanings of those words. Ashkenaz, Ashka Nazi, or the Ashkenazi people. You have it's broken up to Ashka Nazi. Um, those Japhets residing in Shem's tents right now. Those are the Japhetites residing in Shem's tents right now. And we find that blessing in Genesis chapter 9 where Noah himself says that Japhet shall dwell in the tents of Shem. That's exactly what's happening today. Okay? All right. Is that where that Germanic political party got his name from? Is that where he got the idea for his name? From the word Ashkenazi, from the son of Japheth, Ashkenazi, which are Germanic people. See how all these things are coming together? How they just fit in there like a little jigsaw puzzle. So yeah, it makes all the sense in the world now why they call themselves the Nazi Party. Verse 4. Sons Yawan, wine, and sons Yawan, wine, Elisha, El of help. Remind me to speak on that a bit. I didn't put it in my notes, but I should have. Remind me to speak on that when I'm finished. El of help in Tarshish, contemplate. Kit means bruiser, and Dodan is passion. Two things I want to mention about this verse. One, let me start with Tarshish first because this is easy to just get out the way before the next one. Tarshish, that should sound familiar to you. It should remind you of Tarsus or Tarsus, where Paul was from. And this is exactly the same place where Paul was from, Tarshish, Tarsus. Next, the name Elisha, I think it's interesting that his name means El of help, which would mean God of help, right? Where this is way before God was known as El. So I don't know if that's an anachronism or anachronism of later edit, or if that was a relative name at that time. When I say a relative name, it just means that it was a time that was relative to that time. But it seems way premature because God is not, the name El is not used for God until a little bit later. Okay? Verse 5. From these they did the dividing. Okay, I'm sorry. From these they did be divide apart island. The nations inland, them man to tongue, him to families, them in nations, them each to his tongue, to their families. I know that probably doesn't make sense to you, so not resort, but check back with your translation of trust to verse 5 in Genesis chapter 10. Let's talk about this a little bit. Peradventure, the scripture is referring to continents by saying islands. The islands would be divided according to Japheth's will. Many believe Gentile is a derogatory term to be used. However, it only means nations. Yet here it appears to only be reserved for Japheth's family line when it refers to nations. Here we have a bonus because I did a little bit of homework and found what the word Gentile actually means in Hebrew, which is the word Gentile is actually the word goy in Hebrew. Apparently, here's the meaning. Apparently, from the same root as H146, if you have a lexicon, Strong's lexicon, or maybe even a Brown Driver's Briggs lexicon, you can look up this word under that number. Actually, the number for goy is 1471. 1465 refers to a new name of a relation. In the sense of massing, a foreign nation. That's what it means, a foreign nation. And in the King James, you will see that same word, goy, Gentile, translated as heathen. And over the centuries, the term heathen has developed a negative connotation to where, in and of itself, it has its own definition separate from this. Let's continue. A foreign nation, hence a Gentile, also figuratively, a troop of animals or a flight of locusts. Gentile, heathen, nation, and people are the ways it has been, are the words that it has been translated into in the Bible. Move right along. Verse 6. And sons, Chem, hot, Cush, black, Mitzrayim, troubles, and Put, bow, and Canaan, lowered. Let's go back, because I think I overlooked another change in the subject. Yes, here is a new topic. These are the sons of Ham. So we're done with the sons of Japheth. Now we're dealing with the sons of Ham. This is what I think I'll do. After I complete this chapter, I go into some more liberal topics that I can more freely discuss, okay? Then I'll incorporate the Net Bible, and I'll incorporate what I like to call a map of sons. It's a map of sons that I want to show you just how all these things work together, because I believe if we just leave this on the page, we never use our imagination to figure out what this all should look like. So look forward to that near the end after I complete this chapter all the way through. So I'll quickly get through that now, and so I can get to those and spend more time in those in the video. Verse 6. Just read that one, okay? Verse 7. And sons Cush, black, Seva, drunkard, Hawila, twisting, and Savta, go about, and Rama, mane of a horse, and Santeka, lead around, and the sons Rama, mane of horse, Sheva, 7, and Dedan, friendship. Now, I want to say this about names. A lot of times in the Bible, when we find out what a mother or a father would name their child, it would be indicative of a current situation that's occurring in that family, to that tribe, in that nation at that time. Okay? So I'm a firm believer of, if you decode these names correctly, you'll be able to find out what was occurring in that theater of history at that time. Here I took note that somebody must have loved the name Seba. He must have been either a cool dude that his nephew was named after him. I know it doesn't make sense here, but when you refer back to your favorite translation in chapter 10 in verse 7. You will get a version of this, or a rendering of this verse that makes more sense. And you'll see that Seba or Saba or Seva is in most of the names in this verse. I don't care if it's Sabatha or Sevakta. It's at the root of all these names, and I'm trying to figure out why. We found that Seva means drunkard here, but really also let me say drunkard / 7, because Sheva is also the word in Hebrew that means oath and 7. It's a bit disappointing that this Hebrew translator didn't capture that. All right. Verse 8. At Nimrod rebellion, he did make pierce to exist courageous in the land. This is so important that I want to read the Septuagint over here to the left. And Cush begot Nimrod. Okay. He began to be a giant upon the earth. All right. Nimrod is Cush's son. Okay. And his name is not mentioned here in the mechanical translation. Let me read Genesis chapter 10 from another Septuagint translation, which I have the utmost respect for. It comes from the Apostolic Bible Polyglot, and it's translated a bit different. And Cush procreated Nimrod. This one began to be a giant upon the earth. The word for giant in Greek, since we're dealing with the Septuagint, it must be in Greek. To be a senescent, be old, be giant. Okay. So some people question whether it's a literal giant or whether it just means a celebrity with giant in stature, of importance, or age. Right. The next verse gets a bit more detail to help round out or flesh out the idea. Verse 9. Face Yahweh, he exists. Upon so he will be, say, like Nimrod rebellion, courageous hunter to face Yahweh, he exists. All right. Again, let's go to let's match this with the Septuagint. He was a giant hunter before the Lord God. Therefore, they say, as Nimrod, or Nimrod, the giant hunter before the Lord. Now, that's the English-friendly Septuagint, right? That's the LXX 2012. Now, this next is going to be the Apostolic Bible Polyglot. This one was a giant hunter with hounds. Before the Lord God. On account of this, they shall say, Nimrod, a giant hunter with hounds before the Lord. Okay, see the difference? The Septuagint, the Apostolic Bible Polyglot is a Septuagint that mentions the hounds or the dogs, So that gives a bit more specific insight into just what Nimrod may have been. Instead of saying that he was a giant and that he hunted, this one gives a different twist on it. That he was a hunter of giants with dogs. So instead, it's like he went to hunt. Okay, so we go with one version that says he was a hunter before the Lord, which also could mean he hunted the Lord, which doesn't make sense at all. Then we have another version that says he was a giant that was a hunter. Now we have a third translation that says he was a giant hunter with hounds. All right. So maybe he had some giant hunting technique that he needed dogs for, but that's ultra interesting. That's ultra interesting as far as I'm concerned. Okay, the APV translation has he was a giant hunter with hounds. Would mean he hunts and kills giants. He would track them with hounds. Question: what are giants doing on this side of the flood? I thought they were all exterminated in the flood. I thought the flood came to exterminate hounds. I mean, not hounds, but giants. What are they doing on this side of the flood? How did the giants come back? Did they come back through one of Noah's sons' seeds? Or did they take off in a UFO when the flood started to come and they survived it, then came back when they saw the earth was dry? Hey, I know it's a stretch, but there's some sects that believe that. All right, giant hunter literally means giant hound, giant dog. Okay, that adds another twist to the plot. I said that he was a giant hunter. He hunted giants with dogs. Now, looking further into it, it says that the dogs were giant, and that perhaps he was just a hunter and he used dogs with him to hunt, pretty much like what hunters today still do. Verse 10. Kingdom place him Babel or Babylon, confusion, in Erech, long, and Achad, jar, and Kalneh, consumption, inland Shinar, country, 2 rivers. First of his kingdoms was Babylon, not only a giant hunter, but a kingdom collector as well. We see some names of kingdoms here that he either started, overtook, or started. So he sounds like a celebrity of the ancient world. Okay, sounds like he was very busy and took a bit more initiative than anybody else. The fact that he has his own section in this genealogy that mentions him is of note. Verse 11: from the land that she did go out Ashur, step, or Ashur, step, and he will the city, and at Kalah, old age. Verse 12: and at Rezen, halter, between Ninwe, agreeable, and between Kalah, old age, she, the city, the magnificent. Bring 13. Bring forth at Lud, birth, and at Anam, affliction of water, and at Lahav, or Lehav, flame, and at Naphthuth, opening. Let me mention this. First of all, of course, let us remember that we are in Ham's bloodline. So Nimrod was a Hamite. There's a mention of a son here, and one thing to notice about all these sons of Mitzrayim, they seem to be in their tribal mention. They seem to be mentioned in their tribal forms, not individuals. The fact that they have im at the end of their names is a Hebraic suffixing mechanism, or is a way to conjugate a word into a plural. So it doesn't make sense that they came out the womb. His name was Ludim. His name was Lud. But the fact that it mentions it as Ludim means it's referring to a people. Okay? The Ludim as a people. Just like Israeli or Israelites, Israelis are the plural form of, or is the plural form of Israel. And just as that term is used to refer to a people, so is this term as well. This term, "ite," is also similar, and "e" is also similar, like Israeli. Okay? But notice this name, Nephthalim. Nephthalim. That is the same exact name as the tribe of Naphtali. Naphtali. How is it that a Hemite has the equivalent of an Israel tribe? Something to notice and not overlook. Okay? And then you have the Enamim or Enemetim. That's interesting because they're referred to as a race or a tribe of giants later in the Bible. In the Labim. Okay? That was me reading the last bit of verse 13. Not that it relates to this last thing I just said about the giants. I'm not saying that at all about them. Just reading the last bit of verse 13. Now let's move along to verse 14. And at Patros, mouthful of dough. Hey, look, there's certain thoughts in other culture that it's their idioms. And their idioms are usually a mystery to us. So to have a mouthful of dough could be a good thing. It means that he is always fed. He is sufficient in his edible needs. I have no idea. I'm making that up as I go along, but I don't know if that sounds like an insult to us as you hear that, but I'm just trying to show the flip positive side of that, what it could possibly mean, as I'm a bit familiar with how the Semitic think. And at Kashla, fortified, which they did go out from. There, Peleshet, immigrant, and at Kaftor, Nob. Okay. Now, let's not get the idea that when Mitzrayim, who is Egypt, named his sons, these are the exact name of their sons, because these names have Hebrew meanings. Okay? And to the language of Mitzrayim, which would be more of a Kemitic or Kemetic language, it definitely does not share the same meanings of words as Hebrews would have. Because Moses feared speaking to the people for a reason and complained about his language and complained about the way he spoke for a reason. And the Bible never talks about it, but let's just say there was a language barrier. How about that? Move right along. Amos 9:7. I'm trying to make sense of this. Sons, not as sons of Ethiopians are you to me. Sons of Israel, the Lord, did I not lead Israel from out of the land of Egypt, and the Philistines from out of Cappadocia, and the Syrians from out of the pit? Oh, I see why this makes sense. Because this is verse 14. I haven't read it yet, so let me read it now. I haven't read it. Okay, let me read the Septuagint version of this verse so I can make sense of it, so I can explain. And Patroshonim and the Cosmonim, whence came from the Philistine, and the Kaphtorim. Okay, so the verse I just read in Amos 9:7 talks about how the Philistines came from Cappadocia, which correlates and blends in with what I'm speaking about here. The Philistines came from Cosmonim, which apparently is Cappadocia, which is where the Philistines hailed from. All right? Or shall I say herald from. Okay? And this verse makes a note of that. Now we're finished with the sons of Ham. Let's go. Oh, no, we're not. We're not finished with the sons of Ham. We're about to go into the sons of Canaan, which is narrowing the target, or narrowing the locale of Israel. And Canaan, which means lowered, he had bring forth at Sidon hunting, firstborn him, and at Het shattered. 16. And at the Yavus he thrashes, and at the Amor Seir of, and at the Girgash stranger on clods. All right, verse 17. And at the Hiwi village, or shall I say Hiv village, and at the Irach gnawing, and at the Sin, which means thorn, of, and at the Arwad I will preside over, and at the Thamor woolen, and at the Chemat fortress of, after they did be scattered abroad families, Canaan, Lord. All right, let me go back here, because some of the information is being lost because of such a radical pronunciation. And Canaan begot Sidon, his firstborn, and the Chetite. That should stand out to you. And the Jebusite, ding, 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 should be familiar. And the Amorite, should be very familiar. And the Gegashite, and the Evite, and the Arukite, and the Asenite, and the Aradian, and the Samarian, and the Amathite. And at this, the tribes of the Canaanites were dispersed. All right. A lot of those names you should recognize as nations that were kicked out of Israel, or that were asked to be exterminated. God asked the Israelites to exterminate these people. Let me see, okay. Verse 18. Let's go to the notes. An account not recorded by the Hebrew hand, verse 18, of the tribes of the Kenites were dispersed. I still to this day have no idea what I was talking about, but still, never mind. Wonder, can this be found in a Canaanite Bible? I've often think about this. I hear the recordings of history from an Israeli perspective when I read the Bible. But they speak of incidences of other people doing things that I know those other people had to have recorded in their Bible. And I would like to read it from their perspective because we find out that the Hebrews were not always as accurate as they could have been when they tell of another nation's history. Tribe. The word tribe is H4940 in the Strong's Concordance. It's the word mishpacha. Now, those who know Hebrew or have a familiarity with Hebrew should recognize that word mishpacha. Mishpacha is the word a lot of people it's one of the first 10 words that people learn in Hebrew. And it means family. Okay? So when you see the word tribes in the Bible, I don't know where they got that word from, but in the Hebrew, it's the word family. Okay? We'll leave it at that. Verse 19. Let's go to verse 19. Get it up here. Okay. And he will exist, border, the Canaanites, in Canaan, lowered of from Sidon, hunting, come you, Gerar, Chu, unto Hazah, strong, come you, Sidon, secret, unto Gomorrah, rebellion, and Admah, red ground, and Semiim, gazelles, unto Lesha, fisher. It keeps making me laugh how much this does not make sense to you, I'm sure. So let me go and go into the other form in Septuagint. Okay. And the boundaries of the Canaanites were Sidon till one comes to Gerara, and to Gaza till one comes to Sodom and Gomorrah, and Adama and Seboim as far as Basa. Why are the borders of the Canaanites being brought up here? And no one else was this done for. Where were they to be constrained? When I wrote the notes, I thought maybe that was possible, but I'm thinking it's being mentioned here because it's relative to the Hebrews. And this telling of this portion of history, like I say, is being presented to you from the perspective of the Hebrews. So as the land of Canaan is their land, it only makes sense that they will be concerned about that. I made a point to mention the definition of the word boundaries, which is G3725. So this apostolic Bible polyglot that I use is my main Bible for the Old Testament. It has a lexicon in the back of it, and these are the lexiconical numbers that it corresponds with. And I believe these are also, which I believe that corresponds with the Strong's Concordance as well. So there's an intermatching. The word is horion, neuter of a derivative of an apparent primary word, horos, a bound or limit, of boundary line, that is by implication a frontier, region, border, coast. At the point I brought this up in the lesson, it was important to me at that time No longer is for some reason. Verse 20. These sons, Ham, Hot, 2 families, them, 2 tongues, them, in land, them, in nation, them. I like that. It has a nice little rhythm to it. I like that. That's cool. All right. Sons of Shem, next and final. Let's get to them. Verse 21. Verse 21. And to Shem, character, so did much he, oh, I'm sorry, so did much be, bring forth also he father of all sons ever, is the word you're familiar with, word you're familiar with in the Bible, which is called Eber or Eber. You're so used to seeing it in a different form. But here, the B becomes a V, as it often does in Hebrew. Ever, which means to cross over. Eber is the father of the Hebrews. Hebrews means to cross over. See the connection? Interesting play on words once you understand the language behind the words. That's why I encourage everyone to learn Hebrew or Aramaic. The Bible will make so much more sense to you once you take those languages seriously and learn them and add them to your repertoire as you study the Bible. Brother of Japhet, wonder, the magnificent. The father of all the sons of Heber, which is another way it's spelled, Heber, could mean he was a tutor or teacher to them, because we know he couldn't be the biological father of the sons of Heber, and scripture jump link in a hurry to mention Eber, forcing the hand of genealogy. Excuse me, y'all. Well, basically what I'm saying is that Eber is mentioned prematurely here and jumps way ahead in the genealogy to mention it here, when he is mentioned again much later in the genealogy. So it only makes sense that he's being mentioned here because he's being singled out, because he is the ancestor of the Hebrews. And they are altering rules of genealogy just to do what they need to do to mention the people that are important to them and their bloodline. Okay. Heber, which is H5676 in the Strong's Concordance, means properly a recent cross, but used only adverbially with or without a preposition on the opposite side of the Jordan, usually meaning the east, against, beyond, from, over, passage, quarter, other, this, side, straight. Cross over. Verse 22. Let's get there. Ancient and assure, and a foxad, I will fill the breast. I will fill the breast. Lud, birth, and Aram, palace. All right, so the sons of Shem, Elam, Ashur, and Afaxad, and Lud, and Aram, and Canaan. All right. Lud is the second time we heard him mentioned. Mizraim has a Lud as well as Shem. I'm starting to wonder, are these guys that uncreative that they have to use the same name twice for a son each when they're related? Or are these actually mentioning two or the same person? Are they the same person? And there's a way to explain how they could be the same person, but I won't do it here. All right. Also has a son named Ashur and Lud. So, Shem also has a son named Ashur, because we saw Ashur as a Canaanite, not a Canaanite, but as a Hamite as well. and he has a son named Nu. It's very peculiar. Aram is where Aramaic comes from. See, Shem has a son named Aram. That's where the word Aramaic comes from. Ashur, the capital of the old Assyrian Empire. So, hey, some of the nations of the Hamites that were ruled by Nimrod were known to be empires in their day. Shem is not without his empires as well. And sons of Aram, okay, yeah, let me go ahead. And sons of Aram, Alice, Uz, counsel, and Ul means twist, and Geter means fear, and Moshech in the Hebrew version says Mash, means drawn out. It's interesting. It's very interesting. It seems to be interchanging languages here, because Japhet had a Mosok as well, or Mesech as well, and so does Shem, his family, but here is rendered as Mash, which means has its exact same meaning, drawn out. That tells me somebody's playing around with the language. I'm not saying they're playing around to be malicious with the languages, but I'm just saying they're trying. This genealogy does not contain only one language. And that's interesting. I never knew that before until just now. You watched me realize that on the video. Uz, populated by the Arameans, which would make Job, who is from the city of Uz, some kin to the Israelites, because there's a mention of Amorites in the Bible. In certain Bibles it says Amorites, in certain Bibles it will say Syrians. Now there is a certain sacrifice where Israelites are, I wish I should have noted where that verse was. I would go look it up in the Blue Letter Bible right now before your very eyes, but I won't for the sake of time. But it says, my father, what you say at the sacrifice is you say, my father was a wandering Aramean. Okay? And I'm like, who are you talking about? Are you talking about Jacob or are you talking about Isaac? And you say that. So that, it's for the Israelites to recognize that their ancestor was a wandering Aramean / Syrian. And which would make Uzites some kin to them, because Uz was populated by Arameans. According to the War Scroll, oh shucks, that's Dead Sea Scrolls stuff right there. War Scrolls, one of the Dead Sea Scrolls, the land of Uz existed beyond Euphrates, possibly in relation to Aram. In column 2, oh wait a minute, what happened? Okay, let me go this way. Let me do it this way. All right, there we go. In column 2, verse 11, it is noted, they shall fight against the rest of the sons of Aramea, Uz, Hul, Togar, and Mesha, who are beyond the Euphrates. I find this so fascinating, man. All this interconnection between these nations and names and languages. And we're just getting started in the book of the Bible. And if we really understood and paid attention to verse 10 of the Bible, the rest of the Bible would make sense. But so often people just skim over this one. They just read it to say they read it and then be lost the rest of the book, you know? It's kind of like math. If you miss one class, you're lost for the rest of the semester. Uz is H5780, apparently from 5779, which means consolation, as it showed here in the Hebrew mechanical version, means counsel. Consolation. It's a son of Uz, is a son of Aram, also a Serite, and the region settled by them. Moving right along, right along. Was that verse 22, 23? It was? Okay, 24. He had bring forth the at Shelah sent, and Shelah sent. He had bring forth at Ever, crossover. And Arphaxad begot Canaan, and Canaan begot Selah, and Selah begot Heber. This is the actual mention of the name Heber, where he came from. So you see how early in the chapter it mentioned him? Do you see now? Okay, so similitude of names. Canaan phonetically mimics Canaan. All right? And I don't know, it makes me think that the brothers Ham, Shem, and Japheth were still in close communication or something like that, where they would have sons who would name sons so similar to each other. They must have had a foreknowledge of these names, or they must have known of these children before they were born to go ahead and name our son after the name you named your son. All right, let's just keep going. See if we can make some more sense of this stuff. Verse 25. Much be bring forth 2 sons, title the unit Peleg, half, given that in days him she did be split the land, and title brother him Yachlan, he is small. All right, so and to Eber was born 2 sons. The name of one Phaleg, because in his days the earth was divided, and the name of his brother Yachtan. First of all, let's classify this genealogy. So far, we have not read not one age in this genealogy. In the genealogies elsewhere in the book of Genesis, we will read how old these guys were. So that also points to the fact that this genealogy is a targeted genealogy. It has a purpose for being named or mentioned that feeds into the telling of a story. Okay? This is where the idea that Pangea took place. The son Phaleg or Phaleg, it says, is when the earth divided. Okay? And if you have that idea that the word earth is referring to the planet, then yes. But if you have this idea that the earth refers to the land, which it does, the land mass, the country, then it takes on another meaning. It takes on the meaning that, okay, this is when the land became divided, or the people became dispersed, or the people became contentious one to another. All right? You don't get the idea that this is when Pangea happened and the continental drifts took place. All right? It dispels that idea. Unless this speaks of the coordinating with the Tower of Babel, and not only where tongues were divided, but as a result, lands became divided as well, because we have seen lands divided prior to this. And then Deuteronomy 26. and 5. Let's see. Deuteronomy 26 and 5. I think Deuteronomy 26 and 5, if I remember correctly, is about God divided them according to the sons of God. I think that's what that is mentioned. Okay, Deuteronomy 25, 26, and 5. Let's find verse 5 real quick. All right. I should have had this ready, but we're going to make do with it now. Guys ain't got nothing else to do, do you? Enjoy this. All right, verse 5. Man, I'm telling you, this book is so difficult to read if you're trying to do it impromptu like. Okay, and you shall respond and say before the Lord your God, my father threw off Syria and went down into Egypt. This sounds like something different. And sojourned there, few in number, and became there a great nation and a populous multitude. And the Egyptians maltreated us and humbled us and placed upon us hard works. All right. So that was referring. That's the wrong place. That note right there is in the wrong place. It should have been a few verses up, where I was just explaining to you how there was a saying that when you go to a sacrifice and you're supposed to say this exact saying, that my father was a wandering Syrian. Okay, moving right along. Verse 26. Had bring forth at Almodad and at Shelef and at Hatzamaret. I'm sorry, measure, pull, yard of death, and at Yerah, which means moon. Let's jump to the Septuagint to make sense of this, because here is the first time the Bible ever mentions a Sesame Street character ancestor. I'm being silly, and I'm sorry that wasn't that funny, but it did make me chuckle inside. Okay, Jektan begot Elmodad. Get it? Elmodad. Elmo's dad. Ha ha ha. Yeah, let me shut up, move along. Okay, and Saleth and Salmoth in Yarak and Odorah and and Adorah or Hadoram means honor, and Uzal means waver, and at Dilka, palm tree, and at Uval, round, and at Avi Ma'el, my father is from El. Another El reference. I'm telling you, it's too early to be talking about El because he has not been mentioned yet. I wonder, it really has me thinking these are anachronisms. It has me thinking that. And at Sheva, here Sheva means 7. But I guess because earlier, when I was mentioning the Sebas, I guess because there was Seba, Seba is a different meaning than Sheva. Okay, I'll leave it like that. And at Uval, round, okay, so verse 29, and at Ophir, reduced to ashes. Wow, that sounds like somebody has been destroyed. Okay, and Hawila, twisting, and at Yavov, or Yovav, howler, all these sons, Yachthan, he is small. So these are all the sons of Yachthan. Okay, 30, and their dwelling was from, and he will assist settled them from Nesha, storm. Nesha means storm. Masa means drawn out. Come you, Sephar, numbering, unto hill the east. All right, let's make sense of that. And their dwelling was from Masseh till one comes to Saphira, a mountain of the east. Verse 31. These sons, Shem, character, to family, them in tongue, them in land, them to nation, them. The tribes were named after the ancestors that started the family line. Country, H776, Eretz. Eretz. When it says here in the Septuagint, these were the sons of Shem in their tribes, according to their tongues, in their countries, and in their nations. We find the word countries is the Hebrew word eretz, which is the word that's also translated into the English word earth. It's confusing, I'm telling you, but when we do these breakdowns, when we do these cipherings, we do our best to make sense of what is confusing in the Bible, because we can see how the translators, the European translators, have made a mess of everything by the usage of certain English words in a multiplicity of ways. From an unused root, probably meaning to be firm, the earth at large, or partitively, a land, common, country, earth, field, ground, land, nation, wilderness, world. When it says earth, do not get that confused with planet, terra firma. Earth is also soil. When you pick up soil off the ground, you have earth in your hand. Don't get so lost in the lack of usage of the synonyms of earth. All right? Earth has a multiplicity of meanings in it of itself. It doesn't just mean planet or the name of this planet. It also is the name of the ground. Soil being a synonym of earth. Some people get such narrow vision when they read this book. Loosen up a little bit. Broaden it a bit. All right, so summary. Verse 32. And the last verse. These are the tribes of the sons of Noah, according to their generations, according to their sons of them, were the islands of the Gentiles scattered in the earth after the flood. Okay, I did another translation of the word goy. We did it once, we're not going to do it twice. Now let's go into let me just show you. I might as well do this before I get rid of this browser altogether. I'm going to show you this map I did of the sons. Okay, this is something I worked on, taking the names and taking who these people were from, this verse or this chapter said they were from. Then I made a map or diagram of the genealogies. Here we have Sheth. I'm sorry. Here we have Japheth, Gomer. You see Ashkenaz, Rafat, Targam. See his sons there. And then see Japheth. We have Okay, let's put it this way. Let's say it this way. Noah would be the first generation. He's up there all by his lonesome. He's right here all by himself. Okay. Then we see Japheth, Shem, and Shem. There will be second generation. Okay. But then what we see going vertically down, I guess you could call this a vertical family tree, vertical genealogy. So as we see going down from the person's name, from the son of Noah's name, is the third generation. Okay? And the Bible goes as far as to mention even the fourth generation of that son. These are the generations of Noah, which extend to the fourth generation. If that makes sense. And this is a pattern that should be honored and respected and realized throughout the rest of the Bible. When the Bible speaks of generations, I'm saying that for a reason. Because in the New Testament, when it says generation, some people believe that the word generation includes us to this day, which is utterly ridiculous to think that. I'll say that for another video. Getting off topic. Okay. So, Gomer, Magog, Madai, or Madoi, Jovan, etc., they are the sons of Japheth, and they will be the third generation. Now, you can see here from this genealogy, this is why I believe in visuals. This is why I believe in making a chapter as visual as possible, because what you do not realize is that some of these sons don't have sons according to this chapter. Or, which I don't believe they didn't have. I do not believe they didn't have sons. If they didn't have sons, they weren't following the commandment of the Most High, which was to be fruitful and multiply. And we find out that was a very important commandment to the Hebrew people. I know that it doesn't speak for the Japhethites and Hamites, but these genealogies are not true to form. It's a condensed genealogy for a purpose, and the people that were mentioned must be people that have had interactions with Hebrew people. All right? Let's uncover some more. So, Magog, Modai, Elisha, Thobal, Mosech, Tiras, all you mean to tell me all of them are sonless? If all of them are sonless, then those races die with them. And I don't believe that for a second. That helped us to discover that this genealogy is very specific to leave them out. Okay. Now, I have evidence from another genealogy that the wives of these men are mentioned. Okay? And that's going to be in our next video, covering the same topic, covering the same chapter, but is inclusive of the book of Joshua, the book of Jubilees, to bring more enlightenment into this chapter. Because once we get a firm grasp of this chapter, the rest of the Bible will make sense to us, which is why I spent so much time on it. Okay? So Chem, we say the sons of Chem were Cush, Mizraim, Canaan, and there's another one. No. There's only three? He only had three sons? Chem only had three sons. Huh. Okay. And as you can see, all of Chem's sons had sons. All right? Every last one of them had some sons. That's funny, but not all of Japheth's sons had sons. And we'll find out why in a second. We'll find out why the Japhethites are not so favored in the Bible. And the Romans are the reason why. The Romans and the Greeks will be an explanation of the reason why. This is fascinating. I'm telling you. Okay, so here we are. We're down to the first generation, second generation, which is Chem. Third generation is Cush, Mizraim, and Canaan. Fourth generation, we see Nimrod in the fourth generation. Now, what these squares over here mean, remember those 5 cities that were accredited to Nimrod? Well, that's what these are. These are connected to his name here, you see. And then they go down. At least they start that way. They start at his name, coming out, Babylon, Orek, etc. And then we see Sinar. Actually, you know what? I did this wrong. I made a change earlier, and it affected the displaying of this rendering of the genealogical table. Okay, so these cities, Ashur, Nineveh, Rehoboth, Kalach, were, or let me just say, got their origins from the land of Shinar or Sinaa, as it's rendered here in Septuagint. Okay, so it's not only a nation, it's not only a genealogy detailing where certain sons came from of Noah's sons, but also explaining some cities. So it's not just a genealogy about people, but a genealogy of peoples, nations, tribes, which is why it's given that nickname, Table of Nations. Where some people may get lost in, oh, this is his son, that's his son. No, it's talking about the nations where they came from. Okay? So, and let's get to Shem real quick. Shem, Ashur. See that? You see, he has Ashur too. Ashur here in Sem. And then over here, Hemites have an Ashur. Afaksat, Lud. Over here we see Mizraim has Ludim. Okay, we see the similarities? Okay. Amram, Aram, and then we have Canaan. Okay? Then we see that's, excuse me, that's third generation. Now, fourth generation. Now, when it comes to the Shemites, the Bible is taking it even further. We see they have, oh, let me see something. I'm trying to get, oh, man. Okay, cool. Here we go. Let's get back. Come on, man. Okay, there we go. All right, so we have Shem is the second generation, Noah being the first. Ashur and the rest of them following are the third generation. Canaan, etc. downward are fourth generation. Talah, fifth generation. And see how from Aksad's line, Faksad's line, we are just focusing on that and getting to, we get more generations explained that we don't see any other brother or any other nation being mentioned. All right, so now we have to, one, this generation 2, this generation 3, generation 4, generation 5. Heber is generation 6. Phaleg and Yachthan, generation 7. To where we get to generation 8, detailing the sons of Yachthan. But it's not mentioning the sons of Phaleg. See how it's getting targeted? Getting more narrow, and then more detail. Genesis chapter 11, we will discover where this is taking us. All right? All right. So that's good enough. Let's move right along to the Net Bible. Okay? And let us go over these notes. I'm going to try to be brief about this. We're going to go over these notes to give even more clarity to these nations. I would wait until the next video because this one's always been pretty long. But I can guarantee you that next video is going to be just as long, if not longer, than this one. So let me go ahead and do it now. All right. Let's start. What am I doing in Genesis chapter 7? Go to Genesis chapter 10. All right, I don't know how I moved over to 7. But here we go. It appears that the Table of Nations is a composite of at least 2 ancient sources. Okay? Some sections begin with the phrase "the sons of Bene," while other sections use "begat," Yalad. It may very well be the sons of list was an old bare bones list that was retained in the family records, while the begot sections were editorial insertions by the writer of Genesis, reflecting his special interest. So I tell you, the table of nations, Genesis 10, is structure. I'll leave it at that. Let's move right along. The Greek form of the name Yalthath, Yelpetos, is used in Greek tradition for the ancestor of the Greeks. Now we're getting somewhere. Because basically what it's saying here is that Japheth is the father of the Greeks. Okay? And recognized as such. Let's continue. I don't want to disclose too much too soon. Gomer Gomer was the ancestor of the Cimmerians. For a discussion of the Cimmerians, see E.M. Yamauchi. Let's move right along. For a discussion of the various. Not gonna go on that one. Okay. Madai was the ancestor of the Medes. So the Medes would have been Japhethites. Okay? Isn't that clear? Who lived east of Syria. Who lived east of Assyria. Jovan was the father of the Hellenic race. The Ionians, who lived in Western Asian Minor. Tubal was the ancestor of militaristic tribes that lived north of the Black Sea. Okay, next note. Mesech was the ancestor of the people known in Assyrian records as the Mushku. Okay, move right. I'm gonna skip that. Move right along. Tiras was the ancestor of the Thracians, whom possibly became the Pelasgian pirates of the Aegean. The descendants of Gomer were all northern tribes of the upper Euphrates. I hope you can see these notes. Some good stuff here, man. Ashkenaz was the ancestor of the northern branch of Indo-Germanic tribes, possibly Scythians. For discussion, skip that part. The descendants of Riphath lived in a district north of the road from Haran to Carchemish. Please tell me Haran rings a bell for you. Haran is where we read the word Padan Aram, or Padan Haram in the Bible, which seems to be the home country, homeland, home territory of Abraham's people once he moved from Babylon. And we see it playing a big part in the rest of Genesis. Okay. Where are we? Okay, here we go. Togarmah is also mentioned in Ezekiel 38:6, where it refers to Tilgarimu, the capital of Kamanu, which borders Tabal in eastern Turkey. The descendants of Elisha populated Cyprus. The descendants of Tarshish settled along the southern coast of what is modern Turkey. However, some identify the site Tarshish as with Sardinia or Spain. And you can see Tarshish being mentioned in Jonah 1:3. Now, it makes me wonder if they make that confusion because of Tarsus, which is where Paul was from, and they don't want to make Paul out to be a man of color, so they try to Jephthahise this word to give him some origins that's more agreeable to what they already believe about him. The name Kittim is associated with Cyprus, as well as the coastlands of East Rhodes. It is usually a later text to refer to the Romans. Remember how I was mentioning the Romans earlier? And why Japheth seems to be slighted in that genealogy? It may be that the person that edited that table is in the Maccabean era. Or it may have been edited in the Maccabean era. Not sure. Speculating at best. All right, most of the MSS read Dodanim here at 1 Chronicles 1:7. It has Rodanim, perhaps referring to the island of Rhodes. But the Kire reading the Kere reading in 1 Corinthians 1:7 suggests Dodanim. So Dodana is one of the most ancient and revered spots in ancient Greece. I'm telling you, man, these puzzle pieces are coming together and it's beautiful. Okay, so the descendants of Cush settled in Nubia, which is Ethiopia. Okay, now we're finished with the Japhites. Now we're going into the Hamites. The descendants of Mizraim settled in Upper and Lower Egypt. Okay, the descendants of Put settled in Libya. The descendants of Canaan lived in the region of Phoenicia, Palestine. Okay, Palestine, Phoenicia, synonymous. The descendants of Sema settled in Upper Egypt along the Nile. The Hebrew name Havilah apparently means stretch of land. See the Holot 297. Okay? Havilah's descendants settled in eastern Arabia. The descendants of Sapta settled near the western shore of the Persian Gulf in ancient Hadramaut. Okay? The descendants of Ra'ama settled in southwest Arabia. The descendants of Samteka settled in Samudake, east toward the Persian Gulf. Sheba became the name of the kingdoms of southwest Arabia, the name of Dedan in association with Ula in northern Arabia, fathered embedded within Cush's genealogy is an account of Nimrod. And what we don't find, there should be a question mark beside Nimrod because we don't know in what order he was born. Okay, it just later mentions him as if there was a latter birthing of Nimrod. Okay, he may be the last of his brothers. Cush's genealogy is an account of Nimrod, a mighty warrior that have been made there have been many attempts to identify him, but none are convincing. We talked about this earlier. The Hebrew word for hunting is Said, which is used on occasion for hunting men. 1 Samuel 24:13, Jeremiah 16:16, Lamentations 3:18. Feel free to look those up. Another option is to take the divine name here, Yahweh, or Lifne Yahweh, before the Lord Yahweh, as a means of expressing the superlative degree. In this case, one may translate, Nimrod was the greatest hunter in the world. All right, so what I'm doing is I'm reading notes from the Net Bible, which is one of the Bibles I respect because of its notes, not necessarily because of translation, but because of its notes. Okay, I think it does an excellent job of explaining things, which is why I'm spending time to go through the notes in the Net Bible. All right. So note 35, beginning suggests mainstays, citing Jeremiah 49:35 as another text where the Hebrew noun is so used. Okay, forget that note. That note. Then we would have to know where that note fits into the chapter to make sense of it. Okay, so now it's Babylon, Erech. So it seems to be talking about the cities that were attributed to Nimrod. Erech, ancient city of Uruk. Okay, now we're getting into the realm of the Enema Elisha, the Arcadians and such. Modern Warka. One of the most ancient civilizations was located southeast of Babylon. Akkad, or ancient Agade, was associated with Sargon and located north of Babylon. No such place is known in Shinar, Babylon. Therefore, some have translated the Hebrew term Kalne as a lot of them, referring to the three previous names. Shinar is another name for Babylonia. Okay. The subject of the verb translated. Oh my God! Wait a minute. Yeah, we're gonna leave that alone. I'm not gonna go with that one. So you might have to watch this video several times to make sense of all this stuff because there's a lot of information being thrown at you. Nineveh was an ancient Assyrian city situated on the Tigris River. Okay? It's also mentioned in the scripture several places. The name of Rehoboth means and broad streets of the city, perhaps referring to the suburb of Nineveh. Kala, modern Nimrud, was located 20 miles north of Nineveh. Rezin, between Nineveh and Kala, is the great city. It was known for its greatness, I guess. Mithraim in Hebrew is the Hebrew name of Egypt. He fathered the Ludites, were African tribes west of the Nile Delta. And when I said the word Ludim was a pluralization, therefore it must be referring to the tribes. The Anamites lived in North Africa, west of Egypt, near Cyrene. Lehabites are identified with the Libyans. The Nephthites in Lower Egypt, the Nile Delta region. The Pathrusites are known in Egypt as Petoreshi. They resided in Upper Egypt. The Kashluthites lived in Crete and eventually settled in East Egypt, Delta, between Egypt and Canaan. Several commentators prefer to reverse the order of the words to put the clause after the next word. Let's see, I might be able to skip that. Yeah, I'll skip that. Torites. You can still see it on my screen. You should be able to read it if you want to go ahead and read that. I'm going to go ahead and skip that. The Caphtorites resided in Crete, but in Egyptian literature, Caphtor refers to the region beyond the Mediterranean. See how some things are different in other nations' literature than in Hebraic literature. That's what I'm talking about. And everyone I know who reads the Bible wants to credit the Israelites would have telling the entire truth. And unfortunately, that is not the case. There are some inaccuracies in regard to history and as it compares to anthropological literature that the Hebrews made mistakes in because even they didn't have all the information as it referred to other nations. Okay? As it referred to other nations. Let's make that clear. Got to make that clear. Because there's a lot of Hebraic naysayers who want to blame them for lying when I wouldn't call it lying at all. I would call it unfamiliarity with what another nation wrote about concerning that nation. Okay? Where were we? Sidon was the furthermost city in Phoenicia. Here, Sidon may be the name of its founder. Okay? So, see a reference to Hittites here. This note is referring to another mention in a particular verse in chapter 10. I'm just focusing on the notes, reading them through, because if I was to read the note along with where the note came from, we'd be here all night. Okay? All right. Hittites here, but it seems unlikely. See the note and the phrase sons of Heth. Okay. Jebusites were the Canaanite inhabitants of ancient Jerusalem. Here, Amorites refer to smaller groups of Canaanite inhabitants of the mountainous regions of Palestine, rather than the large waves Amuru or Western Semites who migrated to the region. The Girgashites are otherwise known Did I lose my place? Okay, yeah, there we go. The Girgashites are an otherwise unknown Canaanite tribe, though the name is possibly mentioned in Ugaritic texts. Okay? The Hivites were Canaanite tribes of the Hurrian region. The Arkites lived in Arka, a city in Lebanon near Sidon. The Sinites lived in Sin, another town in Lebanon. The Arvadites lived in a city of Vad, located on an island near the mainland close to the river El Kebir. I'm sorry. Some of this stuff is tongue twisters. And the Zimrites lived in the town of Sumur, north of Arka. The The Hamathites lived in Hamath on the Orontes River. Okay, so here these notes here give examples of maps. I want to stay away from that right now, make this easier to get through. Okay, so now we're going to the Shemites, last and final. Whose older brother was Japheth. Some translators render Japheth as the older brother according to the adjective Hagadol, older, as modifying Japheth. However, in Hebrew, when a masculine singular definite attributive adjective follows the sequence masculine singular construct noun plus proper name, the adjective invariably modifies the noun in construct, not the proper name. Such is the case. You want to read the rest of that? You feel free to. I'm gonna skip ahead. The Hebrew name Elam or Elam means highland. The Elamites were a non-Semitic people who lived east of Babylon. How could they be a non-Semitic people when Shem birthed Elam? That's not making sense, man. That's not making sense. Shem was the father of Elam. Okay, anyway, let's move right along. Ashur is the name for Assyrians. Ashur was the region in which Nimrod expanded his power, where the name is also mentioned. When names appear in both sections of a genealogical list, it probably, see how these scholars talk? They don't talk with authority or definiteness of meaning. It probably means that they were both Hamites and Shemites living in that region in antiquity, especially if the name is a place name. Now, I don't disagree with that. This is what I've been trying to struggle with the whole time I've been doing this video, trying to find a way to explain it. They did a good job there. The descendants of Arphaxad may have lived northeast of Nineveh. Lud may have been the ancestor of Ludbu, who lived near the Tigris River. Aram became the collective name of northern tribes living in the steppes of Mesopotamia, speaking Aramaic dialects. See, I was right. Someone in the back for being right about that. That's no big deal. You can clearly see that Aram was the root of the word for Aramic. The MT reads Mash in LXX, which is the Septuagint, or the 70, in Roman numerals, 70. In 1 Chronicles 1:17, read Meshech, Uz, Hul, Keter, and Mash. Little is known about these descendants of Aram. Okay? Moving right along. Some more juicy meat. All right, MT. The initials MT stand for the Masoretic text. That's why I had to get away from the Net Bible. I want to love the Net Bible, but Net Bible has affinity with the Masoretic text. And I, for various reasons, choose not to deal with the Masoretic text that I won't explain now. Masoretic text of Arphaxad fathers Shelah, the 70 or Septuagint reads Arphaxad father Canaan, and Canaan fathered Zelah. The Septuagint reading also appears to lie behind Luke 3:35 through 36. Read that at your leisure. Genesis 11 traced the line of Shem to Eber, to Abraham, the Hebrew. That's what we will uncover in chapter 11 when we get there. The expression, the earth was divided, may refer to the division, may refer to dividing the land with canals. Okay? But more likely, it anticipates division of languages at Babel. The verb paleg, separate, divide, is used in Psalms 55:9 for the division of languages. Interesting how all this stuff is tying together, all from this chapter, no doubt. The name, almost finished, the name Al-Modad combines the Arabic article al with modad, friend. Al-Modad was the ancestor of the South Arabian people. The name Shelef may be related to Shilif, a district of Yemen. Shalif is a Yemenite tribe. Okay? Interesting. The name Hazar Movat or Hazar Moveth should be equated with Hadramaut, located in South Arabia. The name Yera means moon. Uzal, the name of the old capital of Yemen. The name of Dikla means date palm. Obal was a name used for several localities in Yemen. The name Abimael is a genuine Sabian form which means my father truly, he is God. The descendants of Sheba lived in South Arabia where the Jokatanites were more powerful than Hamites. Ooh. So makes me want to uncover that history right there. Okay, we're done right here, almost. A couple more lines to read. Ophir became the name of a territory in South Arabia. Many of the references to Ophir are connected with gold. That's true because Ophir is mentioned in Genesis chapter 1, referring to gold. I believe it's Genesis chapter 1. I may be wrong about that. But I know it's mentioned elsewhere in the Bible and compared with gold or the locality of gold. Connected with gold. 1 Kings 9:28, 10:11, 22:45, 1 Chronicles 29:4-2, 2 Chronicles 8:18, 9:10, Job 22:24, 28:16, Psalms 45:9, Isaiah 13:12. Okay? Feel free to look that up at your leisure. All right, that's it. We're done. There's just a last note about how Havilah is listed with Ham. I think we covered that already. All right, guys. Had a great time doing this chapter. I don't know if this chapter was boring to you before, but hopefully we made it a little bit more interesting with our time divulging the information we discovered. Okay? So that'll do it for this episode of sWordSmiths sWordSmiths Bible Book Club. All right. We have a podcast called Theological Conundrum and also a podcast called it's called Biblical. Oh my God, I forgot the name. I'll put it in the description because I'm gonna tie everything to everything and share everything with everything, so nothing is left out. So this does it for this episode. We'll see you next time we do chapter 11. All right, you guys have a night.